Before we start, a quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. Only 4% of my channel is subscribed. When it reaches 1,000 subscribers, I will release a special video. Chapter 5. Gathering Storm. The crisp air of Earth's capital felt laden with the electricity of impending storms as Serafina and Martin navigated the labyrinthine corridors of power. The cityscape outside the conference room was a stark contrast to Zenithia's ethereal forests, with towering steel structures piercing the sky like spears of ambition. Despite her celestial composure, Serafina's azure eyes betrayed a flicker of trepidation. Every meeting, every handshake was a battle. One she feared was slipping through her fingers, like the sands of Zenithia's dying rivers. Martin, ever the pragmatist, had arranged a series of meetings with influential diplomats and military strategists. He had quickly realized that the challenge wasn't just about presenting facts. It was about storytelling. Earth needed not just to understand, but to feel Zenithia's plight, to see the struggle of its people not as a distant celestial event, but as a narrative with echoes of their own past conflicts and triumphs. Their first meeting was with General Harrow, a man whose reputation for being both a hawk and a dove preceded him. His office was minimalist, adorned only with holographic images of Earth's historic peace treaties, a silent testament to the delicate dance of war and peace he navigated daily. Princess Serafina of Zenithia, Martin introduced, his voice steady, betraying none of his nervousness. She comes bearing a plea for aid against the aggressive advances of Zordax. General Harrow's gaze, sharp and calculating, swept over Serafina. Your Highness, while your situation is regrettable, Earth has its own concerns. Why should we intervene in an extraterrestrial conflict? Serafina stepped forward, her voice a melodic contrast to the General's gruff skepticism. General, imagine a world where the night sky sings with the colors of the aurora, where children listen to the whispers of ancient trees. This is Zenithia. And now, imagine it silenced, its beauty and its people forever lost to the ravages of a war they did not choose. Martin watched as the General's impassive mask faltered, just for a moment, a flicker of human connection. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. Their next encounter was with Ambassador Lin, a shrewd political player known for her ability to sway public opinion. Her office was a library, walls lined with books and artifacts from myriad cultures, a testament to her belief in the power of diversity. Here, the air was thick with the scent of old paper and older secrets. Ambassador Lin, Serafina began, her tone respectful yet urgent. Zordax's blockade starves not just our bodies but our spirit. Without aid, our cultural heritage, our very essence, risks extinction. The ambassador's eyes lingered on a sculpture from a long-lost Earth civilization, her expression thoughtful. Princess, your plight touches the heart. But it is hearts and minds here that I must convince. Your story needs a voice that resonates across Earth. As they left the ambassador's library, Martin felt a mixture of frustration and resolve. We need a different approach, he muttered. Serafina nodded, her resolve hardening. They needed not only to plead, but to inspire. In the following days, they crafted their message, weaving the narrative of Zenithia's plight into the tapestry of Earth's own historical struggles and victories. They spoke of shared dreams, of the universal longing for peace and prosperity, and of the dire consequences of indifference. When the crucial assembly came, a gathering under the great dome of the United Nations of Earth, Martin and Serafina stood side by side. The vast chamber was filled with delegates from around the globe, each representing a slice of Earth's diverse mosaic. Serafina addressed the assembly, her voice echoing through the chamber. Ladies and gentlemen, Zenithia seeks more than aid. We seek alliance. In unity there is strength, strength to defend not just one world, but all worlds against the darkness of tyranny. The silence that followed was profound, reflective. As murmurs began to fill the chamber, Martin dared to hope that their message had taken root. The storm they had been gathering was breaking, and its rains might yet bring life to a parched Zenithia. Chapter 6. Bonds Beyond Worlds. The soft glow of the holographic map illuminated Martin and Seraphina's faces as they leaned over the console, tracing potential routes and allies with their fingers. Outside, the skyline of New Geneva stretched, a mesh of steel spires and gleaming glass under the starlit night, unyielding and cold. Inside, however, the atmosphere was charged with a warmth forged in shared struggles and whispered hopes. See here. Martin pointed to a cluster of lights on the map, representing a coalition of nations on Earth hesitant, but open to dialogue. If we can convince them, others might follow. Seraphina nodded, her ice-blue eyes reflecting the map's myriad colors. In Zenithia we have a saying, she started, her voice a melodic contrast to the room's electronic hum. To turn the tide, find the moon's reflection in the water. Martin chuckled softly. And here we say, it's the squeaky wheel that gets the grease. He shrugged, a boyish grin spreading across his face. Not quite as poetic, maybe, but it's about making enough noise to make a difference. This light moment briefly dispersed the gravity of their mission. They shared a look, an unspoken agreement that they would be each other's ally in this daunting task. It was in this room, with plans sprawling before them like a sea of possibilities, that their bond deepened, no longer just allies but friends. Later, as they walked through the quiet corridors of the Earth Space Force's headquarters, Martin took a detour, leading Seraphina to a vast observatory. The room was dominated by a gigantic telescope pointed towards the heavens, its lens catching the glint of distant stars. Ever since I was a kid, I'd look up at the stars and wonder if anyone was looking back at me. Martin shared, his gaze fixed on the night sky. It's funny. I used to feel so small, so insignificant in the grand scheme of things. But now, standing here with you, fighting for your world, it feels like maybe I was meant to find this fight. Seraphina stepped beside him, her gaze also lifting to the stars. And I have always believed that the stars hold our destinies, that they guide us not to a place, but to our purpose. You have given me hope, Martin, that maybe, just maybe, we are not as alone in this universe as I once feared. The room enveloped them in its vast, silent embrace, a stark contrast to the chaotic world outside. Here, amidst the quietude, they allowed themselves a moment of vulnerability. Seraphina spoke of Zenithia, of its crystal forests and bioluminescent rivers, of the beauty that was now shadowed by threat. And Martin listened, his heart swelling with an unfamiliar protectiveness, not just for Seraphina but for her entire world. It was here, too, that Seraphina finally opened up about her fears. I fear for my father, for my people. What if I fail them? Her voice wavered slightly, a crack in her composed exterior. Martin reached out, his hand brushing hers. You won't. You have me. You have us, he said, gesturing to the world outside, to Earth. You're not in this alone anymore. They returned to their mission with renewed vigor, crafting their speeches for the upcoming assembly, where Earth's leaders would gather. Together, they wove words of diplomacy and urgency, of shared destinies and interstellar fraternity. As the night deepened, they rehearsed their parts, each line a step closer to understanding each other and the worlds they vowed to protect. The early morning light found them asleep in the observatory. Side by side, a blanket draped over them, guardians in a brief respite, bound by a cause greater than themselves, their fates entwined under the watchful gaze of the cosmos. Chapter 7. Shadows of Zordax. In the dim light of the command center, the holographic displays flickered with the ghostly images of Zordaxian warships, their sleek and menacing forms gliding through the black of space like sharks through deep water. The room, usually a hub of whispered strategies and hushed counsels, was silent, save for the low hum of the machinery and the occasional soft beep of a status update. The aging lord of Zenithia watched, his eyes shadowed with fatigue, as each ship moved closer to their beleaguered planet. Outside, the twilight of Zenithia cast long shadows across the crystal towers, their surfaces dulled by years of neglect and the absence of care. The forests, once alive with luminous flora and vibrant creatures, now whispered of decay. The energy crisis had leached not just light, but life from their world, leaving it a shadow of its former glory. Meanwhile, millions of miles away, on a planet teeming with life yet unfamiliar with Zenithia's desperate plight, Princess Seraphina and Martin were weaving through the complex corridors of Earth's United Space Command. Each refusal from Earth's leaders to aid Zenithia had been a blow, a tightening of the noose around their homeworld's neck. But with Martin's encouragement, Seraphina found her resolve hardening rather than fracturing. "Remember," Martin had said earlier that morning, his hand lightly touching her shoulder, "it's not just about asking for help. It's about convincing them that helping us helps them." Seraphina had nodded, absorbing his words. It was a lesson in the politics of mutual benefit, something her father had spoken of, but she had only truly understood in the face of Earth's hesitance. Back on Zenithia, the command center received another transmission. The digital map updated in real time, showing Zordax's forces now blockading the major energy conduits, arteries vital to Zenithia's survival. The Lord felt a pang of dread. They were isolating Zenithia, ensuring no external aid could reach them, turning it slowly into a siege that would suffocate the planet before the invasion even began. "Father, we must prepare for the worst," advised General Tarn, his voice steady despite the grim news. "We should mobilize the reserves and prepare the citizens for possible evacuation." The Lord nodded, his hand trembling as he reached for his communicator. "Make it so, General, and may the stars guide us through this night." As the general moved to carry out the orders, the Lord turned his gaze towards the stars, thinking of his daughter. He whispered a silent prayer to the cosmos for her success. On Earth, Seraphina stood before yet another assembly of Earth's leaders, her figure slender but imposing in the dimly lit chamber. Her voice, once tentative in these foreign halls, now carried a resonant strength as she shared not just the plight, but the spirit of Zenithia. "We ask not for charity, but for alliance," Seraphina declared, her ice-blue eyes scanning the room, challenging each leader to meet her gaze. "In helping us, you defend the balance of power in our galaxy. You prevent a dominion that would soon set its sights on you." Martin watched from the sidelines, admiration mingling with anxiety. He knew the weight of every word she spoke, each sentence a gambit, every pause a chance for doubt to seed in their listeners' minds. The chamber was silent as she concluded. Then from the back, a slow clap began, soon joined by others. Not overwhelming, but enough to spark a flame of hope. Outside, the pale blue light of Earth's moon filtered through the high windows, casting a lattice of shadows over the assembly. It was a moment of delicate balance, a breath held between the potential for despair and the promise of dawn. And as the leaders murmured among themselves, somewhere deep in space, the warships of Zordax continued their relentless advance, the shadows they cast growing darker and more formidable by the hour.